Coming up on this Monday edition of Newsline at noon, in her first parliamentary address, President Park Geun-hye pledges to respect parliamentary consensus and urges lawmakers to quickly pass bills aimed at revitalizing the economy and creating jobs. A Russian commercial aircraft crashes in central Russia, killing all 50 people on board. Investigators are searching for what could have caused the crash. Plus, golfer Park Geun-hye, winner of 3 majors this season, becomes the first Korean to win the LPGA's Player of the Year. These stories and more on Newsline at noon.
Where's the best place for bibimbap?
Les Jeux Olympiques d'hiver se dérouleront-ils à Pyeongchang?
هل أنتم حقاً سابع أكبر مصدر في العالم؟
この歌手は誰ですか？你好，最近哪部电视剧的人气最旺？
Korea is attracting interest from around the world. The more you know, the more you want to know. Dynamic Korea.
Thanks for joining us. You're watching Newsline at noon. I'm Choi in Seoul.
Very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. President Park Geun-hye wrapped up her first budget speech at the National Assembly within the last hour or so, outlining her government's spending plan for the fiscal year 2014. Addressing a packed House, the President asked for support in passing next year's budget proposal and other pending bills.
Our presidential correspondent Oh Jin-ju has the details on that and her plea for ruling and opposition party lawmakers to work through their political differences for the sake of the country.
President Park once again called on the ruling and opposition parties to stop their political confrontation and disputes over allegations the nation's spy agency meddled in last year's presidential election.
정부는 국민적 의혹이 제기된 사안들에 대해 빠른 시일 내에 국민 앞에 진상을 명확하게 밝히고 사법부의 판단이 나오는 대로 책임을 물을 일이 있다면 반드시 응분의 조치를 취할 것입니다.
In her policy address to Parliament on Monday, the president pledged to tighten discipline among government agencies so no such allegations are raised in future elections. Emphasizing that the Parliament is at the center of politics, President Park said the government and the Assembly should now work towards what she called a productive and cooperative relationship.
최근 야당이 제기하고 있는 여러 문제들을 포함해서 무엇이든 국회에서 여야가 충분히 논의해서 합의점을 찾아 주신다면 저는 존중하고 받아들일 것입니다.
On next year's budget plan, President Park said it focuses on economic revitalization and job creation. In particular, she called on lawmakers to quickly pass bills aimed at achieving these goals. For example, those on promoting foreign investment and tourism, normalizing the housing market, and supporting small and medium businesses for a creative economy.
이런 법안들이 제때 통과되지 못한다면 회복 기미를 보이고 있는 우리 경제가 다시 침체의 늪에 빠지게 될 수도 있을 것입니다.
Analysts say her somewhat conciliatory gesture is aimed at securing a breakthrough in the current political impasse and reflects her will to pass the government's budget proposal for 2014 and various bills related to the people's livelihoods. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
Korea and China are to hold their first high-level security talks in Seoul on this Monday. The meeting, to be led by Korea's top presidential security advisor Kim Jang-soo and Chinese State Councilor Yang Jie-chul, is expected to focus on regional security issues such as ways to end North Korea's nuclear program and concerns over Japan expanding the role of its military. Yang, who arrived in Seoul on Sunday for a 3-day visit, will also make a courtesy call to President Park Geun-hye on this Monday. The security talks were scheduled following an agreement by President Park and Chinese President Xi Jinping in June. On the trade front, Korea and China began their second phase negotiations on a bilateral free trade agreement this Monday in Korea's western port city of Incheon. Based on the agreements reached in their first phase, the two countries will discuss the level of liberalization for specific commodities, classifying them into three categories: normal, sensitive, and very sensitive. The Korean officials are also expected to ask their Chinese counterparts to amend competition-related regulations involving Korean companies here in China. A survey by the nation's Fair Trade Commission shows discriminatory practices by Chinese antitrust regulators top difficulties cited by Korean companies. The results of the talks this week will be released on Friday. Korea's producer prices dropped for the 13th straight month in October as the prices of fresh farm produce fell. The Bank of Korea says that the nation's producer prices slid 1.4% from the same period a year earlier. The drop was led by agriculture goods, which fell by nearly 7%. Oil prices also dropped, with Korea's benchmark Dubai crude falling 3.1% last month. Service prices, however, rose 0.4%.
The head of Korea's central bank has dismissed fears the country's swelling household debt could trigger a financial crisis. Kim Jong-soo also said he thinks the economy could grow 3.5% next year if it stays on a recovery track. Yulian reports.
Bank of Korea Governor Kim Jong-soo has dismissed concerns that rising levels of household debt could trigger a crisis similar to the subprime mortgage crisis that almost sunk the U.S. economy back in 2008. Kim's comments, which were made public on Sunday, come amid rising concerns over the country's mounting household debt, which is expected to break the 1,000 trillion won mark this year. That's roughly $940 billion. Between 1999 and 2012, the nation's household debt has grown at a yearly average of 11.7%, twice the growth of household income over the same period. Kim says household debt will not trigger a crisis, as most of it is held by those in the top income bracket. This, he says, causes less of a societal burden than low-income earners with a great amount of debt. He went on to say that if the local economy recovers as anticipated, Korea could reach potential growth of 3.3 to 3.8% late next year, after it sees its negative output gap reversed. The negative output gap we're seeing now means actual output is less than full capacity output. But despite the positive outlook, the governor said his comments should not be taken as an indicator that the key interest rate will rise late next year. Kim says the central bank does not lay out a forward guidance for its monetary policies based on economic conditions like the United States. Just last week, the Bank of Korea kept the benchmark interest rate for the sixth consecutive month at 2.5%. With inflation still well below the central bank's target band and the lingering uncertainty surrounding the United States tapering of its stimulus measures, analysts expect the central bank to hike the benchmark interest rate in the second half of next year. Yurian, Arirang News.
A Korean company has, for the first time, filed a class action lawsuit in the US over the alleged manipulation of currency exchange rates. Electronic parts maker Simtek accuses foreign exchange dealers of working together through electronic chat rooms or by text message. Ji Myung-gil reports.
The first class action lawsuit has been filed by a Korean company in the U.S. over alleged manipulation of exchange rates by global banks. The U.S.-based law firm Kim Han-bae said on Sunday it had filed the lawsuit against Britain-based Barclays, U.S.-based Citigroup, J.P. Morgan Chase, Swiss banking giant Credit Suisse, and various other financial groups at the U.S. District Court for Southern District of New York on behalf of Korean electronics parts maker Simtek. Simtek accused foreign exchange dealers at the banks of working together to manipulate exchange rates through electronic chat rooms called the Bandits Club and the Cartel, or by exchanging text messages. Korean companies have complained that they suffered losses because of the alleged fiddling of a key currency index that determines rates in the foreign exchange market. The Korean company also filed a lawsuit against Citibank in July to seek compensation for heavy losses from investment in the so-called knock-in knockout currency options offered by Citibank Korea. It alleges that the U.S. bank did not provide enough information about the risks involved in the options when it signed the contract in late 2000s, believing it hedged against sudden changes in the value of the Korean won. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
The two Koreas mark a significant anniversary on this Monday. 15 years ago today, South and North Korea agreed to establish tours to Mount Geum-gang in the north. The resort was seen as a symbol of reconciliation and cooperation at the time, but the tours were cancelled in 2008 after a South Korean tourist was shot dead. And there are few signs that it will be up and running again anytime soon. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
Shortly after reunion for families separated since the Korean War on November 18, 1998, the two Koreas agreed to turn North Korea's Mount Geum-gang into a major tourist attraction. The initiative became a symbol of hope and enhanced cooperation between the two Koreas. But the good times will only last around 10 years, as Seoul pulled a tourist after a South Korean tourist was shot dead by a North Korean soldier in 2008.
The Geum-gang tour will be suspended until we get to the bottom of this incident.
A year later, Hyundai Group chairwoman Hyun Jung-eun met with then North Korean leader Kim Jong-il in a bid to kickstart tours to the resort.
Jong-il promised us there will be no incidents affecting Mount Geum-gang from now on.
That promise went down the drain after North Korea torpedoed a South Korean warship in March 2010. Shortly after the Cheonan sinking, South Korea issued its so-called May 24th sanctions, which halted all trade and aid to North Korea. Pyongyang retaliated by confiscating all South Korean property at Mount Geum-gang and taking over the resort. Recently, South Korea called for talks to resume tours, but they fell through amid frosty inter-Korean relations. South Korean officials continue to express an interest in resuming tours. But while the safety of South Korean tours cannot be guaranteed, and the May 24 sanctions remain in place, it looks unlikely the old symbol of hope will reopen anytime soon. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
The families of South Koreans kidnapped by North Korea during the Korean War will ask the International Criminal Court this week to open an investigation into North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and 3 other officials. The Korean War abductees' family union accuses the 4 North Koreans, including the regime's defense minister, of crimes against humanity for detaining South Korean abductees in the north. The president of the family union says although Kim Jong-un is not directly responsible for kidnapping South Koreans during the Korean War, the fact he denies abductions took place and does not allow the families of the abductees to know whether their loved ones are alive or not constitutes a crime against humanity as defined by the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. There are growing concerns in Japan about Korean firms buying up large plots of land on Tsushima Island. Located just 50 kilometers off the southeastern coast of Korea, the island, popular among Korean tourists as Daema-do in Korean, is attracting an increasing number of Korean firms that are purchasing land for resort development projects. Japan's Defense Minister Itsunori Onodera says Korean businesses are buying land close to key military sites and is asking for closer monitoring of the acquisitions. Last month, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said foreign purchases of land near military facilities was an important national security issue, and the ruling party is reportedly pushing for stricter regulations. A batch of records that could help Korea better make its case about Japan's imperialistic atrocities during its colonial rule of the Korean peninsula have been discovered. The Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency says a list of Koreans victimized by Japan in the first half of the 20th century, thought to have been produced in the 1950s, were found at a library inside the former Korean embassy site in Tokyo. Sources in the report say the Korean government had likely collected data on the victims to be used during negotiations with Japan. Experts believe the number of Koreans killed, injured, or detained by Japan far exceeds the number confirmed by Tokyo. The records have been transferred to Korea's National Archives, and the government will announce its findings in the near future.
For your fill of Korean and international news. Join Choi, Yu-sun, and Mark Broom every weekday at lunchtime. Newsline at noon.
Plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the government restructuring bills.
50 people have been killed in a plane crash in central Russia. Officials say all 44 passengers and 6 crew members died after the plane exploded as it attempted to land at Kazan International Airport. Connie Lee reports.
It was a Boeing 737 that crash-landed in central Russia Sunday evening, killing all 50 people on board. These are the photos of the wreckage released by the Russian Emergencies Ministry. About an hour after taking off from Moscow's Domodedovo Airport, the Tatarstan Airlines plane crashed at Kazan International Airport, located just outside the Tatarstan capital, at around 7 in the evening local time. Russian officials say 44 passengers and 6 crew members were on the plane, this including the son of the Tatarstan president and the regional head of Russia's Federal Security Service.
The work of rescuers, psychologists working with relatives of the dead and wounded has been organized. The telephone hotline is open. A working group of the government commission is continuing its work in order to ease the emergency situation.
There's no official word on what may have caused the crash, but reports say the plane had attempted to land at least once and was making a second approach when the accident happened. An investigation is underway to determine whether the crash was caused by a technical failure or crew error. Eyewitnesses say the plane quickly lost altitude and exploded as soon as it touched down. This latest crash comes after a string of deadly Russian airline accidents in the past couple of years. Just last year, more than 35 people were killed in 2 crashes of Russian passenger planes. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Gulf Airlines are going all out to purchase the latest passenger planes as competition heats up to grab a decent share of the growing air traffic in the region. The airline spent over $150 billion on the first day of the Dubai Air Show, which is considered the Middle East's largest aviation hub. Dubai-based Emirates led the spending spree on Sunday with an order for 150 of Boeing's new 777 mini jumbos in a deal worth $76 billion. It also bought an additional 50 Airbus A380s, the world's biggest passenger plane, in a deal worth $23 billion. Boeing, which launched the 777 at the air show, announced commitments for 259 of the jets from Etihad, Qatar, and other Middle Eastern airlines, worth roughly $100 billion, making it the largest combined order in the company's history. The Philippine president has lashed out against authorities in some areas, saying they were not fully prepared for the devastation caused by Typhoon Haiyan. During a visit to the coastal town of Guian on Sunday, Benigno Aquino thanked local officials for carrying out a proper evacuation, but said it was in contrast to other towns. Many within the Philippines say Aquino is trying to deflect blame for his own government's sloppy response to the storm. The Philippines faces a long road to recovery following Typhoon Haiyan, which killed almost 4,000 people and left around 1,200 missing. Many isolated communities are still waiting for significant deliveries of food and water, despite a massive international relief effort.
In sports news, Korea's golf superstar Park Geun-hye has become the first Korean to be named LPGA's Player of the Year after finishing 4th in her latest event. Our Song Ji-san has her story.
Park Geun-hye fell short of a single-season Grand Slam this year, but her stellar performances were more than enough to see her name etched on the trophy for the LPGA Tour's Player of the Year 2013. Park captured the points race with an 11 under 4th place finish at the Lorena Ochoa Invitational in Guadalajara, Mexico. American Lexi Thompson won with 16 under, beating Stacy Lewis by 1 shot. Golfers are awarded points for their top 10 finishes, with the winner getting 30 points and the runner-up receiving 12 points. Points are doubled for the 5 LPGA Major Championships. Norwegian Susan Pettersen, who finished 5th, a shot behind Park at the event, has been chasing Park, but she will not be able to catch Park even if she wins the season-ending CME Group title holders this week in Florida, trailing Park's total of 297 points by 39 points. The honor caps off a historic season for the 25-year-old Korean. She won the first 3 majors of the year, becoming the first to do so since Babe Zacharias in 1950. Park said she couldn't believe she won the Player of the Year award, adding that at least a couple of Korean girls should have won the award before her. Before Park, Shin Ji-hye came closest to taking it in 2009, but she fell 1 point short of Lorena Ochoa on the final day of the season. 송지선, Arirang News.
A team of Korean researchers has published its findings on an advance in technology that has had some success with helping to prevent hair loss. Our Sun Jung-in reports.
Although there is currently no distinctive cure for baldness, which affects around 20% of the global population, a new treatment is getting some attention among Koreans suffering from hair loss. A local development company and a group of dermatologists have started using low-level laser light therapy to help prevent hair loss with some success. With the treatment, subjects saw their hair start to thicken, and some even experienced hair regrowth.
We were able to improve blood flow in the vessels, which is one of the major problems in hair loss. What's meaningful is that we are able to eliminate the primary cause of the symptom using low-level laser light therapy.
The study was featured recently in the Dermatologic Surgery Journal, a renowned publication in the field, and offers proof that the laser light treatment can help prevent hair loss. Still, experts say that before you get your hopes up too high, it's best to consult a specialist to identify the cause of the hair loss, as some forms may be genetic. To support advances in technologies such as these, the Korean government is planning to help small and medium-sized enterprises invest further in research and development. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Let's now go over to the Weather Center for the latest forecast with our Lee Ji-hyun standing by. Hello there, Ji-hyun.
Well, happy Monday, Mark and Yusa. Now, over the weekend, mountains across the country were crowded with people trying to catch the last glimpse of autumn color. And I've also heard the ski resorts were packed with winter sports lovers.
Yeah, so we saw some images there of people enjoying the slopes, and it sounds like people were there taking advantage of the weather. And I also heard certain parts of the country received their first snow of the year this morning.
Well, that's right, Mark. It snowed for the first time in Jeollai, Chungcheon province and on Mount Halla. In fact, this first snow is coming 16 days later than last year, but there wasn't much of it. It was less than 3 centimeters in most places. Now, there's also a chance that Seoul, Gyeonggi, and some parts of Gangwon-do will have snow today, so we can definitely look forward to that. And for today, we will have a chillier, windier day today, with a few passing clouds nationwide, with more clouds rolling in later on, and the rain clouds might be formed in the afternoon. Now tomorrow we will wake up to freezing temperatures of between 0 and -2 in many parts of the country. So it's going to be a colder morning tomorrow with afternoon highs that are slightly higher than today. But unlike the cold snap we had last week, this one will be with us longer. The upper parts of peninsula Peninsula, we gotta get ready for this because we will wake up to sub-zero temperatures and daytime highs staying in the single digits throughout the week. So take out your winter coat, but I'm sure you already did, and gear up with your favorite winter accessories. So with that in mind, here are the readings for this afternoon. So we'll make up to 4 degrees Celsius, which is 39 degrees in Fahrenheit. At Daegu and Gwangju, we'll get up to 8 and 6 respectively, while Busan get up to 10. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju will get up to 10 this afternoon with a chance of light rain. Daejeon and Dokdo will top out at 6 and 5, but Mount Keungang will be a cold -6. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all for me today, and back to you, Sun and Mark, in the studio.
And that's it for this Monday edition of Newsline at noon, but we will be back again tomorrow at the same time.
And until then, do stay with Arirang TV for more on the day's headlines.